And I'll admit everyone. Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Zama, sharing the information about our Teach Australia program today. And with me on our call is my colleague Anna, and she'll be taking care of the Q&A section at the end of the session. So I am just based in our Dubai office in the UAE. And yeah, I've previously worked on the J1 Teach program for the US. So it's interesting and exciting to be working with teachers for this program as well. And yeah, I'll just hand over to Anna to introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our info session. It's really exciting to see you all here. I am Global Direct Sales Director from Alliance Abroad, and my global sales team is taking care of all direct participants for J1 programs, including J1 Teacher program, Teacher Exchange, and also ITP in the US, Internship and Trainee program, and also supporting Zama with the teaching in Australia right now. So thank you so much, and I am letting Zama to introduce the program to you all.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Anna.
You're welcome.
So what is the Teach Australia program? I'll just be sharing some information. I won't be reading the slides exactly. So do feel free to ask any questions you might have in the chat box as we go along. And this information will be shared with you. So don't worry about rushing to take notes or anything like that. We will be sharing this information with you just after the Easter break. So our team will reach out to each of you. So thank you so much for being here, and I hope you can stay engaged throughout the session. So just to introduce the program, this is an opportunity for qualified teachers to teach in Australia. So by qualifications, we mean a minimum of 4 years of teaching experience. And then, of course, when teaching abroad, some of the best benefits is to, gain the new skills and techniques of teaching and offering this program in the beautiful Australia. Yeah, this is to assist our teachers to go beyond what they have previously done in their professional growth, but also to satisfy the skills shortage for teachers in Australia. So that is the main purpose of this program. It is a minimum of 2 years to 4 years. But yeah, I'll share the details of that as we go along in the session. Okay, so the benefits of the program, like I mentioned, professional development, of course, with one of the world's most respected education systems. The minimum salary offered for teachers in Australia on the 482 visa is 88,000 Australian dollars per annum. And this would give you the opportunity to live in Australia for 2 to 4 years while developing your professional skills in a multicultural environment. And of course, the chance to enhance your resume and bring your spouse and children with you to Australia. So that is an option as well. It is part of the visa offering. You are able to bring a spouse and children with you on the dependent visa. So this will be under your 482 visa. And the dependent visa does come at an additional cost. So we will talk about the rest of the visa costs at the end, but just to talk about the dependents, a spouse will cost you about 3,115 Australian dollars, and the dependents will be 780 per child. So more details would be shared with you about that, and that is a once-off payment. We do the document collection for a dependent at the stage where you are applying for the visa, because it's very few documents we need for this process. So mainly just things like birth certificates and marriage certificates. So that is not a tedious process. Up until the stage where we get to lodging the visa, we mainly focus on your visa, as that is the most important, of course. And then your child or children and spouse would also need to get the medical tests when the visa is in process actively. So another thing to bear in mind is that with your spouse, so if you have a wife or a husband that is also a teacher, licensing to teach in Australia, as with any other professions where you need a specific type of license or allowance to work in that profession. But for all other purposes and all other types of roles that don't need any specific licensing, your dependent can work without any extra or additional visa. So they can work as a dependent. They do not need to get a separate 482 visa or employment visa. They have full working rights. Okay. We'll probably discuss this one a bit more in the question session. I see there was a hand, and I will just keep track of those and we'll talk about them at the end. All right, so what does the program include? So Alliance Abroad is here to assist you with the documents section. So as I go through each section, you'll see that there are quite a number of documents you need to submit. So it is our role to make sure that you collect those on time and that they are correct. So we have a documents portal that we will create for each candidate that is eligible and continuing with our process. And in this portal, our team will give you guidance and insight on what needs to be changed, which documents are ready. And once the full set of files is ready, we are then at the point where we can have you go to interview with a school. And then, of course, once you have a job offer, applying for the visa itself. We also provide you with support then when it's time to interview with a school. We give you some tips. One of my favorites is the STAR method for interviewing, where we encourage our candidates to think about talking about the situation, the task, the action, and then the result of how they were able to solve problems, especially when there are video interviews. So you will see that sometimes, as with one of our employers now, Tasmania, they prefer to first have you send a video to the school district. And then once they have an idea of the type of candidate you are, they're able to send your recording to a principal at a specific school. And then you will have an online face-to-face interview with a teacher or a principal at a school. So it's important to have you prepared for that, and our team's here to guide you through that process as well. Then once you have your job offer, it is also the role of Alliance Abroad to assist you with any pre-departure orientation you might need. So relocating to a new country, of course, things like assisting you with health insurance and setting up a bank account, or even things like a tax file number and superannuation. Those things that are quite unique to Australia that we don't have in other countries, we will help you set that up, help you understand what it means and what the implications are for you as a 482 visa holder. And then once you're there, we are also there to support you throughout the process. We're helping our candidates settle in, create community, network with other teachers. So we do want to put you in a good position with your school, with your community, even with your family, to be able to feel integrated and at home as you are working in Australia. Right, so what do you need to be eligible? Like I mentioned earlier, we do need you to have a teaching qualification. So I'm sure in most of the countries where we come from, there are various types. The first important one is either a standard bachelor's degree in education for 4 years. The bachelor's degree needs to include a component where you participated in supervised teaching practice. There is a minimum number of days that you should have done that. It is 45 days. So we need to check that your qualification was if it's a bachelor, for 4 years, and that in each year you did have some supervised teaching, or they sometimes call it teaching practicum in education. So when you are completing your application form, I'm sure you saw we asked you which institution. The reason we asked this as well is because we need to have information about where you got your qualification to make sure that the Australian Qualifications Recognition Board will also credit that when we are applying for your visa. Other types of qualifications. So you could have a 2-year postgraduate education qualification. This is for instances where maybe you have a degree in biology or a degree in mathematics, and then you went on to study an additional postgraduate diploma or degree in education. We just need to make sure that that is from an accredited institution, and again, that you have supervised teaching practice as part of the curriculum in that institution. So those are quite strict requirements. There's also the option for a 1-year qualification in education that also needs to go with prior education. So like I said, maybe you're a math teacher, you did your master's in math and then did 1 year to become a teacher. Those are all included, but we need to check for each qualification, and that's why we ask for you to complete that application form that then allows us to make sure that we can continue with your application. So then another important component is your teaching experience. So that's 4 years standard across the board, full-time teaching, and the full-time teaching does not include any in-classroom training that you did as part of your curriculum as training to become a teacher, and any teaching that you may have done prior to getting your degree. So I've seen some instances where people worked in schools prior to completing their degree. That cannot be counted as this component when we are processing your information for visa processes. All right. Then English proficiency. So you must do an English test. Most of the countries we are dealing with, you do need to do an English proficiency test. This is the IELTS, and I will respond. I will go further into detail about this one on a different slide, but you will need to get an English test unless you are from a country that exclusively has English as the main language spoken. So here I would exclude countries like South Africa. I'm from South Africa. Countries like Kenya, countries like, most of the countries that I've been seeing, even the Philippines. So those countries where English is spoken and we can study in English at school, unfortunately, you'd still need to do an IELTS English test. But we would share exactly where you can get that done, how you can get that done with you as you are going through the process with us. Then the skills assessment. So you need to successfully complete a skills assessment. I'll talk more about this process as well in a later slide. And then your health check. Like I mentioned, you need to do a medical as part of the visa application process that comes along once we have certified all your documents. So do consider that. And then you would need to do a background check. Background check is sometimes called a police clearance or just like a police check. So you need to get a police clearance from all the countries where you have lived in the past 10 years. And this would include your home country. Even if you are not in your home country in the past 10 years, you do need to submit a police clearance certificate for all the countries you've lived in the past 10 years. The only exception is if you were in a country for less than a year. So, for example, you were a J1 teacher in the US, you would certainly need to submit a police clearance for that country, as well as the FBI check for the US exclusively. But for a country where maybe you went for 9 months or 6 months, that's completely fine. We will not need to collect a police clearance for those countries. Right, so the IELTS. Again, this is the only English test that is acceptable for the visa, for the 482 visa, and for you to get a teaching certificate. The PTE is not accepted. The TEFL, the TESOL, all of those are unfortunately not accepted for this visa. So you would need to get the academic version of the IELTS English test. So that stands for International English Language Testing System. Does need to go with this one. And for all non-native speakers, so that would be most countries that do not have English as the only and main language of instruction. So we can share with you the accredited institutions from our knowledge with the IELTS testing centers. But I urge you to always make sure that you're getting it from an accredited testing center. It is quite a strenuous, like a very tedious testing process. So please do make sure that it is from an accredited testing center and that when you submit that certificate, it is 100%. So what do you need to score? You need to score a minimum of 7 for reading and writing, and then a minimum of 8 for speaking and listening. This is a rather high score, even for native speakers. So I just do want you to be aware of that and to try out a few practice tests or do some lessons before going for the official paid test. This test is separate, so the payment for it is separate from our fees. And I will discuss the fees you can expect for an IELTS English test a little bit later in our presentation. But of course, this does depend on the country you're in. So our numbers are ballpark numbers based on how much it would cost in Australia. But I know the fees are different from country to country, but it is always paid directly to the institution and never to us as your agency supporting you in your visa process. Okay. Right. So another additional requirement is that you do a skills assessment. So to teach in Australia, all teachers, regardless of nationality, need to do the skills assessment. So it is conducted by the Australian Institute of Teaching and School Leadership. And this assessment makes sure that you have the necessary requirements to be a teacher in Australia with the required English and qualifications, right? So what this means basically is that they will collect your qualification information and compare that to what is needed to be a teacher in Australia and confirm. So that certificate is to confirm that, yes, this person has the same standard of qualification and experience to be a teacher in our system. So that's why we need to get the AITSL done. So that one is taking into consideration your qualifications, your transcripts, as well as your English test. And since you would be submitting your documents to us on our Alliance Abroad portal, we would then be able to put the relevant information on that application for you to get that certificate. In some of your countries, you might not need a specific document to work with children. I know that in many countries it's part of the teaching license, but in Australia, you do need to get a state-specific working with children clearance. Some call it the working with children certificate, but this is the same thing. You would apply using information about your prior experience in schools and your background checks to confirm that you are fit to work with children, and that would be needed before you can get a teaching license in Australia. So it's essential to apply for that one before submitting your teacher registration. And the teacher registration board will then evaluate whether you hold the valid working with children clearance notice when determining your suitability to teach. So that's quite important. So Alliance Abroad, having your police clearances, we would then know that this person is suitable and be able to then help you progress with those steps. Teacher registration. So the teacher registration is also state specific, and to receive the final job contract, you would need to get your teaching registration. So what do we mean by final? So you would apply with Alliance Abroad, submit your documents, and I'll take you through the little like chart of how the process works. But you would first get a letter of intent, so like a conditional job offer, once completing an interview with the school, and then you would then apply for your teacher registration in that state or district so that they can give you the final job offer. So that is quite important, and it is crucial to ensuring the safety, quality, and competence of teaching professionals in that specific region. So the state has a standard that it aims to reach. It would collect things like your qualifications, again, your English, your background checks, and also references from other employers, so your prior employers, colleagues, to make sure that you have exactly what they need in their state. These documents are often quite overlapping, but there are some differences here and there. So Alliance Abroad assists you with that as well. Right, so which states should we consider here today? Currently, Alliance Abroad is offering teaching roles with the Departments of Education in the Northern Territory. So that's up here on the map, the highest point of Australia. And this environment is, from what I know, so I haven't lived in Australia, but Anna has. So from what I know, it's more like rustic, more not as urban. So it's not city life. So it's more like calm, like countryside almost. And those schools are quite small and more remote. So that is the teaching environment that we have there in Northern Territory. And once you've given the needed information to us and we proceed with your application, we'll share with you exactly what the packages are that are being offered, and we can continue with your application with them and get you an interview there if you're a suitable fit for their roles. And then the other district or territory we're working with is Tasmania. That is small over here at the bottom. It's like just off the coast of the continent of Australia. We have Tasmania. They also have some amazing teaching roles with us at the moment. So we are looking to fill those. And yeah, the roles information differs from district to district. So just to give you a little brief view of what it could look like, I have some of our information summarized here. So some positions for primary and high school teachers. The salaries would range from about 80 to 131,000 per annum. So depending on the role and on the location, the salaries do vary, but always at that minimum. Excuse me. And then you'd be sponsored under the Skills in Demand visa, so the 482 visa that I've mentioned before. Spouse and children can, in certain instances, also be sponsored. So just keep an eye for that when we send you the information regarding your specific qualifications and which roles are available to you. Some of them offer packages where they cover your family as well. So that's a great benefit. Some schools also offer relocation expenses to be covered, some accommodation when you arrive, and so from 3 weeks to 20 weeks. Some even offer long-term accommodation, but this is not standard within the visa. So usually you would need to find your own accommodation. Alliance Abroad, as part of your program fee, we offer you 5 nights on arrival of housing or accommodation. So that would be for you just to settle down, go to a few viewings, connect with your school. We'd usually have someone there to assist you in finding a place to stay as well, and then you could settle down there. Some schools also offer a settling in payment, bonuses. So the longer you stay, there are bonuses involved, and then some subsidized accommodation. So in instances where they don't offer you the accommodation, they might just give you a certain sum to subsidize the accommodation that you do find for yourself. Okay. So this is the process. This is what I mentioned earlier. I will try and go through this one a little bit quickly because I think I've covered most of it so far. But just so you understand the path you'll be walking, right? So right now we're at the application phase. You have your information, you're attending this information session here today. And then our team will share the information with you, as I said, within a week or so about what we have available, what matches your skill set, and then you would need to start submitting your documents. So when you start submitting your documents, our team, as I said, would be giving you information about what you need to change, what is still outstanding. We'll follow up with you. And as you're submitting your documents, one of the very important ones we want to highlight is the English test. We cannot have you interviewing with the school if you have not yet done your English, unfortunately, because that is the score of 7 for reading and writing and 8 for speaking and listening. It is a rather high score, even for some native speakers to get. We do want to make sure that that is fully complete from your side. You don't need to worry about it. And the school can also feel confident and go straight through with your application. So that is quite important. As you're doing your documents as well, we do want to get you started on your skills assessment. So like I said, we have the documents, right? So we can start putting that together and have your skills assessment done, comparing your qualifications and experience with what is needed to teach in Australia. And then we will set up virtual interviews. So we would like to then have you presented to a school, interviewing with them. At this point, you would have had a call with someone from our team to give you some tips, to answer any of your specific questions, and to make sure that, you're comfortable speaking on camera. You are able to make sure that, everything is in place for you to present your best self for that interview. I always encourage our candidates to think of the interview as you interviewing with any employer and not focusing on the relocation aspects. That's why we are here. We are here to help you with the relocation, with the visa, and the school is looking to fill this role and seeing you as an amazing candidate to fill that role. So I really want our teachers to shine in those sessions and just talking about their teaching experience and everything that would make them a suitable fit for that role. Then once you have your job offer, your employment contract, we will then assist you to make sure you understand everything in that and then complete it, and we can start preparing your visa. So between the employment contract and the visa, we would need to make sure that all the prior steps have been closed off completely. Our team makes sure that we are compliant, we check all your documents, and then at that point, only once we have certified that we are confident that we would have a proper visa application here, we send that through to the lawyers of the host entity, the host school where you would be working. And then they process that visa for you, and then they call you in for a call where they'll then tell you when to do your medical, ask you about the family visas, share that information with you. Family visa payments are done at this point when you are preparing your visa application, and they assist you with that from the immigration lawyer side. Then Alliance Abroad will come in and assist you with your pre-arrival orientation. So we assist you just preparing for the big move. And then we also assist you once you arrive. So arrival orientation, we organize someone from the school to come assist you and give you the training needed to just settle in well. And our team that side in Australia is also available to assist you with anything on the ground. Then once you arrive, it is very important that you can get into the classroom. And you cannot get into the classroom without these two essential aspects, number 10 and 11. So that is the Working with Children certificate, as I've mentioned before, and the teaching registration. These two we can start before you fly over, but they need to be completed in person. So those are two things you'll need to do quite soon after you arrive. Just going to finalize your teaching registration and your working with children certificate so that your employment can. So sometimes you would need to arrive at a different city to complete these two sections and then travel to the city where you will be onboarding and training for your new school. We'll share that information, of course, depending on the role that you are receiving and its location. Then, in the school, getting orientated, Alliance Abroad will check in on you. We'll make sure that you are settling in well. If you're bringing your family, we'll assist you with giving you information about schooling and getting everyone settled. And throughout the time you are on our program, you can reach out to us with any issues you might have or just advice and really just walking this path with you even after you have the visa and are in Australia. Right. So what are the documents? I've touched on most of these, quite self-explanatory. Personal identification, so your passport, but it's usually a few different identification methods we need. So for the working with children, for example, you'll need to submit additional driver's license or birth certificate or any other type of identification in addition to the passport. Your resume, which we will help you with as well. The language, like we've mentioned, the English test. Academic qualifications, so your degree transcripts and the diploma or the certificate. Within that, we look that we have supervised teaching practice, but in addition to that, you do need to get a statement from the institution confirming that you have the supervised teaching practice component. We will give you a template and documentation to assist you in that if you do not have it already. And then the police checks are also quite important. And also just based on the experience component, we want to collect your employment certificates. So prior roles where you have worked, you need employment certifications for those, just to fulfill the experience component of your application. Right. Finally, the fees. So this is an investment to opportunity in Australia, and it is a one-time payment. I know some programs you do need to pay on an annual basis, but with this program, it is a one-time payment for the visa, either for 2 years or 4 years, depending on the contract offered to you by the school. The first payment is invoiced to you only once you get a job offer. So prior to that, Alliance Abroad is working with you to prepare you to getting a job offer. Once we have succeeded in getting you to an interview and you've been offered a role with the school, you will get that first invoice of 2,500 Australian dollars. Then we assist you to really put everything together, make sure your file is ready for lodgement, make sure you've got your police clearances for the working with children certification as well as for the teacher registration. And once everything is ready for visa lodgement, we would send you that second invoice as well for 2,500. So the second installment of 2,500 Australian dollars. And then finally, the installment once your visa is approved, that is also 2,500. So in total, that is 7,500 Australian dollars, the full program fee, excluding any needed family visas. Okay. Other costs you might need to consider is the payment for your IELTS, which we need before you can get a school interview. We also need you to get a skills assessment. So prior to lodging your visa application, that is about 1,050 Australian dollars. Then finally, the working with children and the teacher registration. Those are each state specific. So for working with children, it's usually around 84 Australian dollars. And then the teacher registration for the Northern Territory. So as I showed on the map, that top section over there, That top district there is 312. And then for Tasmania, our island is about 190 Australian dollars. So that's what you need to consider. Again, here we've included the dependent visa cost, adult, and 780 for child. Okay. Right. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. Anna, do you have any questions for us? Then we can start that part of our presentation.
Yes, there are some questions regarding IELTS, if any other English tests are allowed to be accepted for the program other than IELTS.
Unfortunately not. Unfortunately not. So for other 482 visas, like the one we're working with our culinary team and other 482 visa streams, they do allow tests like the PTE, but because this is for teachers specifically, for the teaching license, you would need to get the IELTS and in its academic version. So there's an IELTS general and there's an IELTS academic. Only the IELTS academic is acceptable.
In terms of people who studied in the US at American universities, what's the response regarding English test?
Yes, that is one of the exceptions. So if you have studied in the US for more than 4 years, or if you hold a US passport, then you do not need to do an English test. We would need to get the information to prove those two exceptional aspects, and that would be submitted in the place of an English test.
Thank you. And another question, do I need to take an English test since I am a Kenyan and English is our language of instruction?
Yes, yes, you would.
Thank you. There are some also very personalized questions regarding personal circumstances, but two of these questions are related to supervised teaching practice. Is it absolutely mandatory requirement to be able to apply for the visa? It's yes.
Yes, it is. It is absolutely mandatory. So it is in the visa regulations. It is also in the teacher registration requirements. You do need to have supervised teaching practice as part of the curriculum that you studied to become a teacher.
Also, there are some questions from previous J1 teachers. So unfortunately, if you don't have supervised teacher practice from your previous educational background, also the answer is no, you are not qualified in that instance. This is absolutely mandatory. But in terms of teachers that are previous J1 teachers for our program who do have supervised teaching practice, you are definitely more than welcome to apply. So also there's a lot of questions about different type of tests. So unfortunately, Zama already responded that only IELTS is accepted for this particular type of visa and program. Another question, how long does this process take?
So that depends. So the process length would depend on various factors. How long it takes you to submit your documents being one of them. So if you already have your police clearances and you've done your IELTS, then the process can be sped up quite significantly. We can get you interviewed at the school quite soon. But if not, if you still need to get your English done, that does cause a little bit of a delay at the very start. So let me just open this slide so we can have a look. So as part of your document collection here, that is the first roadblock we need to cross, right? Along with the English proficiency. And then how long it takes us to collect your documents also affects the skills assessment. But once you've had the interview and you get a job offer, we can move at a little bit of a faster rate. The visa processing itself, so once we have submitted it, that can take anywhere from 4 weeks to 4 months, depending on your nationality, the documents you've had to submit, the qualification you have, and these timelines can also change with the seasons. So when it is peak season, it does tend to extend quite a bit. I've seen it extend to about 8 months. So anywhere between 1 to 8 months is really a reasonable expectation to have. Hopefully, we can bring that down by having your documents ready and making sure that everything was checked and making sure that able to submit when it's not a peak season. But yeah, it is dependent. You can see this information on the Australian immigration website as well, just on how long it is taking at that point in time. So when we go into the application with you, when we submit your visa application, we can also give you an idea of how long it will take based on the timing.
Thank you. Will you send as attachments information you have outlined to individual emails because internet connection may have been problematic in some locations?
Of course.
Yes.
No, of course. Absolutely. We will share this presentation. We will share all the information you need to be able to get a good grasp of what the program entails. And then we can continue the process with you. So yes, please do have a good look at the information we will send to you. Our teams will get in touch with you after the Easter break, so early next week. We will be reaching out to everyone that has been in this call, and we will give you the information that we've shared here today for your consideration.
Thank you. Another question. Do we have an opportunity to obtain a permanent residence visa?
Yes, you do. So the 482 visa is a pathway to permanent residence, although it is not guaranteed. So let's say, for instance, you get a 482 visa with Alliance Abroad to work at a school in Northern Territory. You love it, the school loves you, everything is going well, and you then share with the school, or they ask you about your intentions to extend and stay longer than the contract that you already had with them. At that point, the school can support your application for permanent residence. You do need your visa sponsor to support your application for permanent residence. But there may be instances where they just can't support the application, or just various reasons where they can't support your application for a permanent residence application. And in those instances, you have two options. So you could either then apply for a teaching role in another school where they are willing to sponsor you, and you do need to work at that school for a minimum of 2 years before you can then have them support you in a permanent residence application. Or if you are not going to change the role you're working in, you can then return to your home country if you do not want to get, if you're not going to go ahead with the permanent residence anyway. If you have dependents at this time when you're applying for permanent residence, right, you would include them in this application, and they would also then get the same status change in visa as you when that happens.
Thank you. There's like the big number of questions for people who are either currently in the US or teaching in English. So they are asking if, even though they are teaching in English and currently working in the US, if they still need to do IELTS. So yes, the response is that unless you are studying in the US for more than 4 years in English or you are a US citizen, you must have IELTS in that instance.
Yes. Just to go back to the previous question about the permanent residence application, there is an age limit on the permanent residence application. You must be under the age of 45 when that visa gets given to you. right? So the 482 visa, the visa we are talking about today, the skills in demand visa, that one does not have a age limit. But most employers would prefer that you are 3, so that if they do want to offer you permanent residence, that is an option. Some schools, it doesn't matter. Some of them are giving you a contract for 2 years or 3 years, whatever the case might be. We just share the information with them about your application, and it is up to them to decide. But there is no official age limit. It just depends on the employer and what journey they are looking to take with the applicant that they choose to employ.
Thank you. When I have all application requirements, what is the probability that I will get a job?
The competition is high, I mean, for any job. So what can boost the probability of getting a job is making sure that you've met that English requirement. So that is something that can really set you apart and put you in the right position to be a star applicant. So English being there, and then also just meeting the brief of the employer that we are working with at that time. Right now, we've got roles across the board from primary to high school. So it really just depends on your suitability for the role and on your readiness. Like you said, once you have all the documents, it just depends on your suitability for the role. And of course, like we mentioned earlier, you would not be billed or asked to make a payment for getting you into an interview. But once you have a job offer, that is when your commitment with Alliance Abroad would start.
Exactly. Thank you. Okay, are the applications to schools year-round or just start of each school year?
So the skills in demand visa kind of puts, well, the reason that the teacher role is in this category, in the designation of skills in demand visa, is because they really have a shortage of teachers at the moment. And our school districts are telling us that they are willing to hire teachers, bring them on board throughout the academic year. Of course, it is more comfortable for both parties if it's at the start of a school year or at the start of a new term or semester. But throughout the year, as soon as you're ready and your visa is approved, our schools would like to get you there as soon as possible. Especially at this point, they would have started building a relationship with you, started getting to know you, and put things in place so that even if you are arriving in the middle of the academic year, they've kind of already prepped for that.
Thank you. What is the age limit for applicants? And the same person is asking, what is the minimum age for dependents?
Okay, I'll start with the dependents. A dependent is anyone under the age of 23. There's no minimum age. So anyone under the age of 23 counts as a dependent. And then the age limit for the program itself, there isn't a age limit specifically, but the preference is for candidates that are under the age of 43, because this puts them in a position to be eligible for permanent residence at the end of a 2-year visa.
Thank you. There is lots of questions with very specific, personalized situations. So my actually suggestion is that Zama, if you can add your email address, or I will actually do it in a moment. If you have very specific questions about your personal situation, I suggest to send an email, and then you will be able to get a response, but also responding again about the IELTS test. unfortunately, there is no other test that is equivalent to IELTS in terms of the requirement for the visa. It's not that we have this requirement as an agency recruiting for this program, but this is the requirement of the visa itself. So if you are not going to have this particular test with the scores that Zama mentioned are required for it, you basically are not qualified for this program. You will not get a visa. So unfortunately, we just cannot change it in any possible way at this stage. Another question, what health conditions are considered unfit to work?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
What health conditions are considered unfit to work?
I'm not sure about that one, to be honest. So the type of a medical that a person would do before getting the visa for teaching is the same that a chef would need to get, is the same that anyone would need to get for a long-term visa. So if you can email me about that question specifically, I can get more specific information for you on that. But I don't think it would be any different from what you could find online about what the long-term visa requirements are for a medical to go to Australia. Yeah.
Okay, there is a question about the J1 programs in the US have a 2-year rule that you need to go back to your home country and share with your countrymen. Sorry. Okay, and share with your countrymen what you have learned about the US educational system. Does Australia have the same rule?
Yes, so the J1 visa, like this person has mentioned, it is essentially a cultural exchange program. So the intention of the J1 is for you to go, share your culture, and come back to your home country and teach that to the people back home. The Australian visa is different because in this instance, we are wanting to satisfy the demand for teachers in Australia. And like I mentioned earlier, if your contract with the school that you're employed with expires, you are able to get a second sponsor for another contract to teach in Australia. And you can do that continuously. Or you can apply for permanent residence with a school that you would be staying with. But when your contract has ended and you are unable to get another role, you have, I think, a maximum of about 90 days to find another role. And only in that instance would you need to like absolutely leave the country, as is with the J1.
Thank you. Could you please repeat the cost for IELTS test?
Yes. So this information will also be shared with you, so you would have it. It is dependent on the country you're in, right? So the cost in South Africa would be different from the cost in the UAE, for example. So this amount that we have here, 450 Australian dollars, is how much it costs for an IELTS in Australia right now. So this might be different from where you are located. I think when we share the information, Anna, when we share the information with our candidates later this week or early next week, I will include a link that you can follow. This is the official IELTS accredited institutions information. You pop your location in there and it'll show you the closest locations to you where you can get your test done. You do need to do the IELTS in person. And where that location is based, they'll also give you the information about how much it costs in that location. So we will definitely give you the information for that. Please do check there because it also gives you the accredited institutions, which is also important.
Thank you so much. How do I start with the stage 1?
Right. So the first step when we share that information with you early next week, so you've done the first step by submitting your application. But now we will need to start getting your documents and making sure that you meet all the eligibility criteria that we have discussed here today. And in collecting your documents, you'd also be booked in for a call with one of our team members to make sure that you understand all the information, and they'll also then start discussing with you the roles that are available. Once we have all the information, we will then be able to have the interview with the school. So the most key part of getting into an interview is getting your English done, your English test, meeting that score, and just letting us know. So in our emails to you, do be responsive, and communicate with us if you have any issues, so that we can walk this path with you and make sure that you can be ready for the opportunities that you are a suitable candidate for.
Thank you. There's a question about the program could last up to 4 years. On when you mentioned about being able to find another sponsor, does that mean that we can go beyond 4 years even without sponsorship from the school employer, or are we required to go back to our home country?
Okay, so I mentioned that you can find another sponsor, yes. So that means finding another school to teach at, right? So you would let us know, hey, Zama, and I'm coming to the end of my contract. Can you would have a contact at the school that can assist you to find another role? That is up to you. But you would always be under a sponsorship. So you can't ever be outside of your contract beyond the grace period of the 90 days, right? So within that grace period, yes, you can be without a sponsor, but you wouldn't be working, because if you are working, you have a sponsor. So yeah. And then if you are without a sponsor and not working for more than 90 days, you are then by visa requirements needing to go back home to prevent an overstay situation, which is absolutely not allowed. Even our team will make sure that we keep on track with you about like making sure we stay to the compliance of your visa regulation.
Thank you. And there is a question about the payment that we need to prepare for all the fees. Do we need to pay it upfront, or can it be paid monthly? So probably someone is asking about payment in installments. So here, all of the payments must be paid before starting the program.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Anna.
No worries. So thank you so much. By the way, there is really lots of questions, and also there's lots of questions depending on the country in terms of accepting English language. So Zama added her email address, so definitely you can ask your specific questions. I am very happy that there is such a big interest. This really shows how really invested you are in finding out information. So this is fantastic sign for us. And as it was mentioned before, you will get the information that you could get from us today after Easter. That's why you don't have to worry that you forgot about something or you missed some kind of information. It will be provided to you so you can put it all together. And if you will have any further questions after receiving the email, you can absolutely contact us.
Yes, I'm also sharing my email again in the chat box. Thank you all for today. We really appreciate your time, and we look forward to working with you in the near future.
Thank you so much.